that's me. I've always been appreciative to live where we live. We have electricity, we have running water, we have our modern conveniences. Over the past few years, my family has been fortunate to have the opportunity to host children from other parts of the world for various reasons that don't live as we do, but gave us new perspectives on things. I have 4 children, 1 by birth and 3 by adoption, and for that I am grateful every single day. My oldest is Nicholas, he'll be 19. I have Eric and Josie are 15. They're not twins, they're 3 months apart, adopted at different ages, that's another story. And my youngest is Jing, and she is 8. When we were in Kazakhstan adopting Eric, the judge said to me, you have a son, why do you want another? And I told him, I'm a teacher, I'm used to having 25 around me at a time. And he looked at me and he said, then we will see you next year. I love when my house is full of children. Let's see, so one year the church up the street from us was hosting an African children's choir called Mwangaza from Uganda, and they were looking for host families. So for 5 nights, we got to share our home with 3 boys from Uganda, ages 10 to 12. At this time, my kids were, 10, and then 7 and 7. So having these boys live with us for 5 days was really exciting. They asked us not to let them see TV or video games or the internet for cultural reasons. So we spent a lot of time talking and playing. And one night they were all sitting shoulder to shoulder on the couch, asking each other questions. And I remember my son Nicholas talking to a boy named Jonathan. And they were talking about what jobs they had, what chores they had, complaining about their chores. And Jonathan said, my job is to fetch water for my family. Nicholas was shocked by that. And he said, oh, don't worry, it is easy, I have a bicycle. So sitting side by side, these boys. There was another boy named Wilbur, and every morning he would have toast for breakfast. His smile was ear to ear crunching on that toast. They loved bread because they don't have ovens. My kids couldn't even imagine that. So one day Wilbur says, when I'm older, I will have a job, and I will buy a toaster. And the other boys started laughing, and they said, how will you plug it in? They didn't have electricity. They were fun. Another thing they appreciated was running water. So to turn on the water and have hot water for a shower was amazing to them. The day before they were to leave our house to go to their next family, I told them to throw all their dirty laundry down the laundry chute, and I would wash the clothes before they moved on. Well, they just looked at me blankly, and I thought, oh, laundry chute. So I had one of my kids go up and show them the laundry chute. So Dennis throws his clothes down, he gets all worried. He comes running down and he says, where'd they go? I get them back? And I said, yes. So I brought him down to the basement and showed him where they all collect in the basement, and he was just mystified. So then another boy comes running down. They are clean? He thought it was a magical laundry chute, that as they fell, they would magically become clean and were waiting at the bottom. I told him if he could invent that, then he would be a very rich man. Let's see. Oh, we were able to host different groups of children from Mwangaza 3 different summers before they stopped touring to our area. And each time my kids were welcomed and got to welcome them in return, and got to play side by side with boys who live very differently from them. But they could learn that we all can live differently and get along and respect each other's cultures. After the boys would leave, my house felt kind of empty. We had an extra bedroom and extra beds, and it started to kind of haunt my thoughts. I always think of our overwhelmed foster care system, and I just felt like there was another little soul out there that was meant to sit around my table. So I researched foster care training, but the classes were only on Monday nights, and I had been teaching music classes for the past 20 years on Monday nights, so I thought, not ready to give that up yet. So I put that idea aside and just left myself open for what might come to be. Just a couple months after that, I got a phone call from Shriners Hospital. There was a little girl in China, 2 years old, coming to the United States for surgeries for her burns. She had burn injuries. And they were looking for a host family for her, someone to take her to the doctor, someone to be with her in the hospital, and to take care of her because her family could not travel with her. They said it would be about 6 to 12 months. So we talked about that, and we decided that yes, we could do that. My kids were great during this time. Here she is, tiny little 2-year-old coming from the airport. At this point, Nicholas was in 7th grade, Eric and Josie were in 4th grade. So imagine adding a 2-year-old to that mix. It changed the way we functioned. We had diapers and bottles and nap time again. And throughout all of that, my kids were great. They were loving, they were helpful. It seemed that Jing, just by being who she was, seemed to bring out the best in everyone she came across. She couldn't even talk, but she brought out the best in everyone. Neighbors that I hardly knew were at my door with a meal and a bag of clothes. I received gifts in the mail from strangers across the country who had heard from the Chinese community that a little girl was here without her family, having surgeries. There was a woman who lived 45 minutes away from me, and every 2 weeks, she and her young daughter would come to my house and play with Jing and speak to her in Mandarin to try to keep her language and her culture fresh. I had never been witness to so much kindness centered around this one beautiful girl whom I had come to love as my own. I'm happy to say that, oops, I think I need to skip ahead here. See, aren't they cute? Oh my goodness. So now, I'm happy to say that she still occupies that empty room in my house and that her adoption is complete, so now she stays with us forever. We got another call a couple years later. This time, again from Shriners Hospital, there's a girl in Benin who's coming to the United States for surgery. This time she has a large tumor on her face that will be removed. She was 8 years old. At that time my kids were 16, 13, and 6. So we put another chair up to the table and Claudia arrived in September of 2016. For her privacy, I'm just showing like a side picture. Her tumor was very significant. It had destroyed her upper jaw and her nose, and her looks were shocking at first. In her village, she was shunned. She was asked not to come to school anymore because she was too scary. She was used to everyone just being mean, and so in turn, she was mean. She would smack us if she didn't like something. She was very loud. Her language was fawn, F-O-N. Google Translate nor I had ever heard of that, so communication was very difficult. She had concerns of safety. She didn't understand coming from her small village with no water, no electricity, nothing really to fear. She would run into the busy street. She would play with the gas stove because it amazed her that it would come on so quickly. She would walk around the car as I was driving. My kids began to resent her, and sadly we all looked forward to the day when she would go to the hospital and have her surgery, because then we would have a break. Her physical transformation was unbelievable. The doctors took her fibula, bone from her leg, and made a new jaw. They took a rib and reconstructed her nose. While she was in the hospital, she had a trachea tube and she had a feeding tube. So she was confined to bed a little bit, and the nurses and the therapists would come to her room, greeting her with a smile every day in a way that she had never experienced. She craved that love, and she binged on Disney movies and learned all kinds of English. And when she came home in November, she was a different child. She had learned to trust people in a way she never had before. Oh boy, so when I was talking to my kids about what kind of memories we should share here, they gave me some ideas. So first I'll tell you, her first dinner when she got here, we had just picked her up from the airport, and I tried to make some familiar foods. So we sit around the table, and there's a big bowl of rice, and she has no English, so I pantomimed for her, go ahead and serve yourself. That's not how they do it there, so she took a scoop of rice and looked at me. Took another scoop of rice. When I didn't stop her, she took another and another and another, and soon she had this mountain of rice on her plate, and she was proud. So she did the same thing with all of the bowls of food that we passed. She had this enormous plate of food. We knew she couldn't eat it all, but so she ate, and then when she was full, she made a gesture like, I can't do anymore. So I showed her how I would wrap it up and put it in the refrigerator, and I said, tomorrow, Claudia, tomorrow. And that's how she learned about leftovers. They don't have refrigerators or leftover food, so that was a new concept. So she would frequently end a meal living on
piling another
and saying,
serving on
tomorrow.
and saying tomorrow.
Another story, so this is my son Eric. He's dying to take her fishing. So she seemed to know what that was. She was eager to go. So we go fishing, and it didn't take him long. They caught the fish, and Eric took it off the hook, and they posed for the picture. And then, you kiss the fish, right? He throws it back. She was so mad. She screamed. She called him Eriki. Eriki! This loud, angry stream of words and fun came out of her mouth that I'm glad we couldn't understand. She said, "We eat!" She thought we were catching fish to eat and that he had thrown back her meal. She talked about that one a lot of times. Let's see, there was another one. I made a little cheat sheet because I had one more good story I didn't want to forget. Well, she needed to be busy all the time. Leisure time was a foreign thing for her. They didn't have that where she came from. So she liked to sweep the floor, and she liked to help with cooking. So if I noticed her getting homesick, I would buy a bag of potatoes, a 5-pound bag, and she would peel them, and she would chop them, and she would sweep the floor, and she would feel better. Let's see, there was another one. Oh, her firsts. Oh my goodness. She was with us for 8 months. So this time of year kind of reminds me of her. Imagine if you were plucked out of a village in Africa, popped in Cincinnati, and it's Halloween, and you take a piece of food, pumpkin, and draw a face on it with a marker. She's looking at us. Cutting out the face, putting a candle in it and sticking it on a porch. She was so confused. At Thanksgiving, she was just amazed at the spread of food, and she ate 3 plates before I thought she'd make herself sick. Now, when Christmas rolled around, we read that Elf on a Shelf book, and that freaked her out. She was worried that this elf was moving around at night while she was sleeping, watching her, and she didn't like that at all. Soon it was time for her to go. Oh, here's her little panda. She loved that panda. I can't remember what photo I have next. Yeah, here we go at the airport. Soon it was time for her to go, and she had to pack. She'd accumulated a lot of stuff while she was here, dolls, gifts, clothes, toys, and she had just a single carry-on to take home with her. So she looked at it all, and what she chose to take home with her was a can opener for her mother, an egg slicer, food, pancake mix and measuring cups, and toothbrushes and toothpaste for her family. She had 5 siblings at home. So that was pretty humbling. She put her clothes and her toys back in the drawer, and she said, "For when I come back." She said, "Jing can play with them, but put them away." She wanted to make sure those were there when she got back. Jing has since grown into her clothes, but the toys and the dolls are still waiting. I don't know if we'll ever see her again. We can't write because they don't have mail service. They don't have a telephone. We can't call. Some people say, I could never host because it would be too hard to say goodbye. But the way I look at it is that we are forever connected. We're a part of each other's history. Her picture hangs on my living room wall. If I never see her again, I know that we were there for her at a very difficult time. And if we do see her again, what a party we can have. The biggest thing I've learned from hosting all these children from around the world is that kids are so easy to love. They don't care what kind of house or money or car or anything. They just love so easily. I hope that my kids have taken away from this that anyone is welcome at our table, and that if someone needs your help and you can help them, you should. If anybody out here is considering hosting, adopting, fostering, exchange students, anything, I encourage you to take the leap, because I think you will be forever changed. Thank you.